As you all know, a week ago we lost the great Chuck Norris. And since my review of Missing in Action has done very well, I said I would do a review of this if that vid did well, and it certainly did. So now I'm going to bring to you a review of another one of his well known flicks, and it's a film that celebrated its 40th anniversary a month ago. Long before the Expendables, there was these guys of this group. This is my review of the Delta Force. This is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome again to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. I'm the Big D, and this time around, I bring to you a review of the 1986 action flick, The Delta Force, from the Cannon Group, as it was released by them, directed by Menahem Golan, who, of course, this was produced under Golan Globus Productions, starring Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin in his final film appearance as leaders of an elite group of Special Operations Forces personnel based on the real life U.S. Army Delta Force unit. Golan also co wrote the film's story along with James Brunner. The film also features a pretty big cast that includes Martin Balsam, Joy Bishop, Robert Vaughn, Steve James, Robert Forster, Shelley Winters, and George Kennedy. The film was released on February 14th, 1986, and eventually did pretty well. Maybe not quite as much as Missing in Action, but still eventually did pretty well, despite it was not well received by critics. But let's get into the story anyway. In 1980, Operation Eagle Claw is aborted after a fatal helicopter crash with the U.S. Delta Force evacuating to their C 130 transports. Among them is Captain Scott McCoy, who, against orders, rescues his wounded comrade Pearson from the burning helicopter before the team finally evacuates. McCoy expresses his disgust for the politicians and the military hierarchy that forced the mission to launch despite the risk and announces his resignation. 5 years later, in 1985, a group of Palestinian terrorists hijacked American Travelways Airlines Flight 282, a Boeing 707 flying from Cairo to New York City via Athens and Rome, taking all 144 passengers and crew hostage on the Athens Rome leg. The New World Revolutionary Organization, led by two terrorists named Abdul Rafi, and Mustafa, forced Captain Roger Campbell and his crew to fly the 707 to Beirut, where they make demands to the U.S. government that, if not met, will result in the death of all the hostages. During the crisis, they segregate the Jewish passengers from the Americans by forcing a reluctant flight purser of German heritage named Ingrid Harding to identify them. Another passenger, Catholic priest William O'Malley, joins the Jews in solidarity. Unbeknownst to the authorities, the Jewish hostages and O'Malley are then taken off the plane and transported to a militant-controlled area, Beirut, while a dozen additional henchmen are brought on board. The flight departs for Algiers, where the terrorists release the female hostages and children. Meanwhile, Delta Force, led by Colonel Nick Alexander and a recalled to duty and newly promoted to Major McCoy, are deployed to resolve the crisis. With the female and children hostages evacuated, they launch their assault, only to discover too late that there are additional hijackers on board. When the Delta Force blow their cover, Abdul kills a U.S. Navy diver named Tom Hale. He then forces the pilots to return to Beirut and takes the remaining male passengers with him. Upon returning to Beirut, the terrorists transport the passengers to a separate location while the pilots and two male flight attendants remain in the 707. Working with sympathetic Greek Orthodox priest, Israeli army intelligence prepares an operation to free the hostages. McCoy and Pearson are able to enter into Lebanon disguised as a Canadian television crew. In a prolonged campaign against the terrorists, the Delta Force bide their time to identify the terrorist leaders and locate the hostages. Once the hostages are located, Delta Force assaults the terrorist holdouts, freeing the hostages and evacuating them to the airport. During the battle, McCoy, Pearson, and their team hunt for Abdul and the Jewish hostages. They kill most of the militants, but Abdul gravely injures Pearson and flees. While the commandos tend to Pearson, McCoy chases Abdul and tracks him down to a nearby abandoned home. He then engages him in a vicious hand-to-hand fight, breaking Abdul's arm. As the terrorist leader prepares to shoot McCoy, he is killed when McCoy launches a rocket into his car. Now for the endings, you know what you gotta do. Okay? Stop this video at once, go to the description box below, and fast forward to the time below. If you've seen this movie already, please continue once the 5 seconds are over with. Okay, you've been warned. With the hostages and rescue teams secured, the team seizes Flight 282 by secretly infiltrating the airfield through a cotton plantation. Using silenced weapons, Alexander and the Delta team kill the terrorist guards and save the crew. They board the 707 with all the hostages, taking off to Israel just as McCoy storms the runway on his motorcycle, managing to board after destroying several terrorist jeeps. On board, the team tends to the wounded passengers and the dying Pearson. After having confirmed the hostages are safe and en route home, Pearson says his farewell to McCoy before succumbing to his wounds. In the main cabin, the ex-hostages and Delta commandos join in a rousing rendition of America the Beautiful, not knowing about Pearson's death except for Alexander, Bobby, McCoy, and O'Malley. In Israel, the Boeing 707 lands safely and the hostages are greeted by their families while Delta Force disembarks with Pearson's body and towed to their C-130. The team concludes their operation and departs for the U.S. amidst celebrations by the people. End of story. So, what did I think of the Delta Force? Well, after watching this finally for the first time, I had been wanting to see this for some time and I never got up to it. Well, I must say, this film is really, really cool and I like it. This is another good masterpiece that the late great Chuck Norris did. And like with Missing in Action, I am respectfully dedicating this video in his memories. This is why you didn't see a picture this time. So, because I already did that for Missing in Action. So, and if that video did well, I do this one. And I did. I'm a man of my word. Anyway, it's pretty darn awesome and really cool. The film did fine, though it lost to The Color Purple and Down and Out in Beverly Hills. It did, however, beat two other films, which were the second Nightmare on Elm Street film, Freddy's Revenge, and Youngblood. It still did fine and what have you. It went on to make $17 million here in the US on its $9 million budget, becoming a decent success. Now, Rotten Tomatoes has this only at a mere 14%. And Metacritic has the film at an average 37. In other reviews, some of the old school ones, or some recent ones, or what have you, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave it 3 out of 4 stars and called it a well-made action film that tantalizes us with its parallels to real life. Vincent Canby of the New York Times wrote that it will be the 1986 film all others will have to beat for sheer, unashamed, hilariously vulgar vaingloriousness. Variety described it as an exercise in wish fulfillment for those who favor using force instead of diplomacy. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times wrote, of so big a project, the film is drawn out and complicated. Gene Siskel wrote for the Chicago Tribune, but unfortunately this did give him a mere star out for calling it a prime example of second-rate action pictures, and that the action in Beirut is more appropriate for a bad James Bond film than for a subject that has been all too real lately. Norris gets off shooting rocket launchers from his specially built motorcycle, and we sit there stunned at the movie industry's ability to make money off any tragedy. Well, that may be, but I don't feel like it's that bad. Paul and Atanas, Atanasio, excuse me, of the Washington Post called the film one of those disaster movies that Hollywood was churning out 10 years ago, which doesn't even deliver on its own storied level. There isn't any action until 70 minutes into the film, and that's a pallid car chase, immediately deflated by composer Alan Silvestri's idiotic disco fanfare. After that car chase, it's another 30 minutes till you can watch Chuck Duane cry. Yeah, well, that's what they say, but who cares? I found the film to be pretty enjoyable. I mean, sure, it has its flaws, but it still had what it took. But Alan Silvestri did the score for the film, and the heck with what I just said a while ago. I think this film score from Silvestri was really good. You can't go wrong with some of his stuff. And according to Norris, he said he felt better after the film was made, and he did. Where she, well, I and he says he thinks it's a way for other people to release their tensions, and thinks it's good therapy. Well, even though he's dead, I am gonna say I agree on that. Nevertheless, I found the Delta Force to be another good film. After watching Missing in Action, I decided to give the dice a roll and give the Delta Force a go for, and I liked it. One day I'm gonna try and watch a few more Norris films and maybe review them down the road. Just stay tuned. I don't know if I'll do any more, but rest assured I will do some more. Fun fact, Silvestri's score was also used by ABC Sports as the intro to their Indianapolis 500 broadcast from 1988 to 1991 and again 2001. It was also used for the intro of the Brickyard 400 until ABC lost the race rights to NBC Sports in 2001. But anyway, yep, that was really cool. I have to give it credit. Upon its release, I will say that Lee Marvin did publicity for the film, which was rare for him. And he said the movie was a good flick and admitted, but I guess I might be protecting myself, keeping the doors open with canon. There aren't too many firm film offers these days that guarantee money up front, and was considered doing a sequel where Delta Force would rescue hostages after a terrorist skyjacking a luxury liner. Well, the studio was announced they would make a TV series of it, but it didn't materialize. But however, it did get two sequels and what have you. In Delta Force 2, the Colombian Connection, which was released 4 years later, which Chuck Norris returned. A year later, a third one would follow on direct, which would be direct to video. And unfortunately, Chuck didn't return, but it does have his son in it, Mike Norris. Now, for the cast, we have Chuck Norris as Scott McCoy. I've got to give him credit. This is a good role he took. Now, fun fact: later that same year this came out, he also did his own show in Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, which I'll talk about that later on this year. Next, we have playing Colonel Nick Alexander is Lee Marvin, whom he sadly passed away the following year. He was best known for his work on numerous films, most notably The Dirty Dozen. Let's see, Robert Vaughn appears as General Woodbridge. He's pretty good. After this, he would go on to appear in the final season of TV's The A-Team later that same year. Steve James played Bobby Lee, a member of the Delta Force. Let's see, and William Wallace is Pete Peterson. Yeah, they're pretty good. Robert Forster played Abdul Rafai, and David Menahem was Mustafa. But anyway, and there's lots of others. Let's see. We have Martin Balsam as Ben Kaplan and Shelley Winters as Edie Kaplan. Very good. Let's see. Joy Bishop as Harry Goldman and Lainey Kazan as Sylvia Goldman. I got to admit, the cast is pretty good. Not too bad. A fun fact, McKelty Williamson, Liam Neeson, and Kevin Dillon also appear as extras where they portray Delta Force members. That's right. Surprised? I am. So with everything said, the Delta Force may have its flaws, but it's still a pretty good 80s action flick. Well, I recommend. I'd say hell yeah, go for it. I mean, if you liked Missing in Action or maybe some of the other films that Norris did before this or after, then you'll feel right at home with the Delta Force. I think you'll really like it. Mm-hmm. So what did you think of the Delta Force? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Continue to help support my channel, and you know the rest. Join me next time when I bring to you my spoiler-free review of Bambi the Reckoning. So if you like this, check out my reviews of these two films that started off a big, heroic franchise. Check out my review of the Expendables in the upper left-hand corner, or see my review of the Expendables 2, which had a little bit more of Chuck in it in the upper right hand corner. Or if you'd like, go to the bottom left hand corner and see my recent review of Norris's classic 1984 film, Missing in Action. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.